What is going on, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast, a special NBA draft edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast here at DraftKings. If you are watching on YouTube, you see we have a guest alongside none other than Jeff Goodman. You can find him on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. He is a basketball analyst at Stadium. Jeff, thank you for joining the Unreasonable Odds podcast, man.
What's up, man? Yeah, we're getting down to it here. The NBA draft, some predictability, but a lot of unpredictability. It's a fun time and a time when even and I feel like I have some, inside knowledge with a lot of this.
That's why you're here.
I know, but you never know. Like I've covered these things for ESPN. I was on site, reporting on them for 4 or 5 years. And even then it would be like, you never know what's going to happen with trades and whatnot. The only thing I feel really, really good about is the Cade Cunningham will be the number 1 overall pick. That's all.
I think we all feel good about that, especially considering, let's see what the numbers at the moment. I should say first, we are recording this on Tuesday, July 22nd at noon on the East Coast. Yeah. It is important to put that time stamp in there because the draft is Thursday, July 29th at 8 p.m. I think it starts.
Yep.
So we're gonna talk, top 10 picks, some draft numbers that are on the board at DraftKings Sportsbook. Things change a lot. A lot of the things we're talking about have changed a lot over the last few days. So putting that timestamp in there, and we'll see where things go. Cade Cunningham is currently minus 8,000 to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft. Okay. If you want to make $100 on the number 1 pick, you got to lay $8,000 on it on Cade Cunningham. That's how certain we are that he's going number 1 to the Pistons. We might as well, you can just touch on it for whatever, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, thoughts on the number 1 pick, thoughts on Cade Cunningham and the fit with the Pistons and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. I think he's got a lot of Luka in him. He's big, he's strong, he makes people better. He's got every intangible. Not a great shooter, but shot 40% from 3 last year at Oklahoma State. He's not the scorer that Luka's been so far. I don't think he'll be that, but he'll be a better defender. But again, big, strong, sees over defenders, uses angles, and will get better and better and better. It just impacts winning at such a high level. So I know it's out there right now. Woj put out there that they're not sure who they're going to draft. That's always a load of crap. Every year It's the same old thing, right? For the most part. Well, they're considering no, they're not. They're going to draft Cade Cunningham.
Yep, as they should. And my comp, a Ben Simmons that is not afraid to shoot. Not quite the defensive player.
Not as fast. That's the thing. Ben is a blur. Like, until you see Ben in person, it's hard to explain how fast he is at his size. Cade is not that, but what he is a big point guard who you can play anywhere, makes people better. And you're right. Not a great shooter, but will shoot it and has gotten better shooting the ball.
Yep. All right. So not too much to talk about there. Number 2 with Houston is kind of where things start. And I think this is more, Jaylen Green. This was originally when odds opened, kind of a 3-man race with Jaylen Green, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Suggs, all, around plus 150-ish range for this pick. Unless this pick is traded, it seems like Houston is locked in on Jaylen Green. We've gotten that from some good sources, and sportsbooks are going with it. DraftKings Sportsbook has Jaylen Green minus 380 to be the number 2 pick in this draft. Is Jaylen Green going to Houston? And if not, do you see any potential to trade here? Because I know Houston would love to. They keep talking about moving up to 1. That's not going to happen. Is Green the guy at 2? And is it going to be Houston?
Yeah, I think so because of his upside. And that's where if you're Houston, you've got John Wall and you've got him on the hook for $91 million the next 2 years. So it's close. Like, I love Jalen Suggs. I do. I love his upside. I think he can be a top 5 point guard in the NBA in time. But if you're Houston, you're saying to yourself, all right, we got Christian Wood. We got John Wall on the hook for all this money. We got to play him. We got to figure out a way in the next 2 years to get as much as we can out of him. And can we get this freak athletic wing, Jaylen Green, who, oh, by the way, the questions were his work ethic and his perimeter shot. And he shot 37% from 3 in the G League Ignite, their bubble. And he played hard and was productive every single game. So NBA guys love him because they could see him as being that kind of 3-level scorer in the Donovan Mitchell kind of mold of give him the ball. And he's not a true point guard by any means, but he can just make plays down the stretch. So I think Houston, that's certainly where I've been told they are leaning heavily to.
All right. So number 3, that works well for this team, I think, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are loaded with all the guards that they've been taking, the last 3 prospects, Sexton, Garland, Okoro, all these guys, they need a big. And if it works out like this, now Evan Mobley is sitting there and is kind of the perfect fit. Yep. There's another team that was rumored to maybe want to move around. I think if 1-2 goes as we expect it, now you got Mobley, who is minus 225 on DK Sportsbook to be that number 3 pick. Are the odds kind of catching up here and telling us, agreeing with what you think, how this draft is going to go?
What did you say Mobley is?
Mobley's minus 225 to be exactly the number 3 overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was in Cleveland a week ago having breakfast with Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey, and they didn't tip their hand at all. But from talking to them, yeah, listen, I feel like they know they can't take Jalen Suggs as much as they would like to. If they take Jalen Suggs, they're forced to have to move Darius Garland or Colin Sexton. And you don't want to be put in that position because neither one of those guys have enough trade value, right? Right. Sexton's worth more to them than he probably is to any other team right now. He's got more trade value to Cleveland and Kobe Altman. They think higher of him than probably anybody else. So, yeah, I think Mobley, they feel like could fit alongside Jared Allen. And let's face it, like Kevin Love, his days are numbered. I mean, we know that. They just can't get rid of him.
You're not making any decisions based on Kevin Love. You're a young team that needs all young pieces. So that, yeah.
Mobley's so different than Jared Allen. I've heard a lot of people say, well, Mobley can't play with Jared Allen. They're both great defenders. But Mobley is a guy that, honestly, he can put the ball on the floor so well. And he knew this past year where his bread was buttered, which was in the post. He's long, he's thin, but he was so effective around the basket. He's going to be able to step out and be able to make shots from 15, 18, and eventually extend his range to 3-point range. I think he only took, I don't even know, 30, 43s this past year, about 1 a game he attempted. He's going to be so much better. My biggest concern with him, honestly, down the road, when I talked to him in the preseason, the one thing he said to me was, when I was younger, I didn't love basketball. And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, that's the thing you hate to hear.
But I think he's grown to love. Not many guys, I think, can grow to love basketball. But if you watched him play last year, you would say, like, all right, that's not the issue. The issue is, can he be an alpha dog? Can he be a number 1 guy, or is he always going to be Chris Middleton and that type of role? And I think Cleveland, if you said to him right now, you're going to get a Chris Middleton type player, but a better defender and a guy who can make shots eventually from the perimeter and really create. You got to go Evan Mobley if you're Cleveland.
Yep, I'm with you. So, all right. Those are a heavily favored top 3 right now, as it should be. Number 4 is where I think things get really interesting. Just to start with the odds, Jalen Suggs is minus 160. He should be favored. Toronto has the pick.
That's low. Like,
you think that's low?
Okay. Oh, hell yeah. I think this is a 4-man draft.
Unless I agree with
trade, unless there's some crazy trade, I would be beyond shocked in a scenario where Jalen Suggs does not go in the top 4. Beyond shocked.
Well, so here's the thing. He can't. This is minus 160 is to go exactly 4.
Yep.
So the top 3 have to go how we said, and then Suggs goes 4 at minus 160. I agree with you, and I love Suggs personally as a prospect. And the thing that I can't get over is that it makes sense because Toronto is eventually going to have to move on from Lowry.
Right.
You plug the position right in, a good player that, even at 4, Suggs is kind of quote unquote slipping in this draft.
Yeah.
He
would have went number 1 last year. Jalen Suggs would have went number 1 if he had been in last year's draft.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I'll play some devil's advocate and give some pushback, I guess. The guy that is maybe the biggest riser at the top of this board is Scotty Barnes from FSU. Longer point guard, the wingspan, all that. He's plus 300 to go for. The other thing we're seeing is this kind of gets into 5, 6, kind of lumping the picks together. Orlando at 5. There's Kuminga. There's talks of a guy like Barnes. OKC maybe falls in love with Barnes. tries to leap up to 4 to get Barnes. We've seen that report out there. But the smart thing for Toronto, I think, is to stick there and take Suggs, who falls into their lap. You seem pretty set on that. How do you feel about Toronto trading the pick? Do you think there's anybody else Toronto looks at?
No. Biggest no-brainer. This is the biggest no-brainer of the draft, other than Cade at 1. This is the Toronto hit the damn jackpot getting number 4, because they're going to get a great player. As I said, it's a 4-man draft to me, and then a big gap. Because to me, Jalen Suggs, what's the most important position in the NBA? Probably point guard and then a multi-dimensional, versatile wing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Jalen Suggs is kind of both. I mean, he really is. He's a point guard with incredible court vision. Not a great shooter, but showed the ability to make big shots. Incredible defensive instincts. Incredible. Like anticipation. Big, strong. Not as freakishly athletic as Derrick Rose was in his heyday vertically, but he's got a gear. He's got a burst.
Football player.
Totally. So I think if you're Toronto, there's no way in hell I'm taking Scotty Barnes, because I got Pascal Siakam. And I'm not saying they're similar, but
lanky.
Yeah, they're like, neither one are great shooters. Like Scotty Barnes can't shoot right now. He's a point forward who's an elite level defender, but he can't shoot right now. That's not what Toronto needs. Toronto needs a big guard who you could pair. And Suggs isn't 6'5", but he plays bigger than he is, probably 6'3". Plays bigger than he is, and you pair him with Fred VanVleet, and you've got 2. You're losing Lowry, who's an MFer. You bring in Suggs, who's an MFer. And you pair him with VanVleet, and you've got an elite level backcourt again. And again, Suggs isn't Lowry because he's obviously hasn't been in the league for 10, 12, 15 years. But I just think
the perfect replacement.
Ultimate no-brainer. Ultimate no-brainer.
Okay. Let me try and push back one more time. Not that this is what I would do, but I'm going to push back one more time with this. What are the odds that if OKC is in love with Barnes and went up to 4 to get him, and Toronto fell back to 6, what are the odds that Orlando is silly enough to leave Suggs there at 6 for the Raptors and take a Kuminga, I guess, maybe a Bouknight? That's too high for Bouknight. I guess Kuminga would have to be the guy.
I don't think it's too high for Bouknight.
Okay.
Here's the thing. When you're looking at like Barnes, Kuminga, Davion Mitchell, some of those guys, what do they all have in common? They're not great shooters. Davion Mitchell was this past year in college, but not regarded as a big-time shooter. Bouknight is a scorer. All those guys are defensive-minded, and Orlando, OKC need scores. They need a score. They don't need another piece. They need stars. And to me, Bouknight has the best potential to be an offensive star. I've said it for months. I think Bouknight, people laughed at me when I said it. I'd love to find the clip. I probably said it 2 months ago. I would take Bouknight at 5, personally. Right.
And you're saying Suggs goes 4, so Barnes slips to OKC at 6. Who wants him, and that could be a spot for him.
I think he could. And I don't know if he's a great fit because again, OKC's got what? Lou Dort, not a great shooter. Now you want to just keep building great defensive players. That's great, but like at some point you need scores. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's a good scorer, not a great scorer. So I feel like Bouknight could slide, and he's already sliding up, but I feel like he could slide even higher because he's different than everybody else that you're talking about in that range.
He seems to be a riser. So just to like his number on DraftKings Sportsbook opened at 10.5.
Yeah.
He's now at 7.5 with -170 to the under. So he's going to go in the top 7 in this draft. It's telling you. The number for him to go in the top 10, you can bet, will he be a top 10 pick? -380. So he's risen from a, right on the line of top 10 to firmly in there, according to the odds.
Yep.
So let's go to 6 in OKC. Things get kind of interesting here. It seems like I feel like they're very interested in Scotty Barnes. If Barnes were to go 5, would they be interested in a Bouknight probably at 6 to OKC? Kuminga. What do you think of OKC? What do you think OKC is looking for at 6, and how likely do you think they are to try and make a move?
So I think Kuminga is the guy who potentially slides here.
Okay.
So to me, I would see Barnes and Bouknight going in some order ahead of Kuminga. I don't know if it's 5-6 Barnes Kuminga or 5-6 Kuminga Barnes. Remember, Orlando's got 5 and 8. So they're probably going to go with the guy that they do not think has the ability to be there when they're picking at 8. So if they think OKC or Golden State's going to nab Bouknight, I would think they grab Bouknight at 5 and then say, hey, you know what? Whoever's there at 8, whether it's Barnes, Kuminga, whoever, we can still get a good defensive-minded forward at 8. But again, I think Kuminga, who is, what is it right now? What's Kuminga? I saw it.
So he, I believe, is set. Is it 7.5? He's been moving all over the place. I want to say it's 7.5. 6.5. Okay, that makes it tougher.
So I'd go the over on that. I kind of like the over on that.
Okay, so you think Orlando and OKC take kind of more sure thing prospects?
I do.
And then, because it makes sense too, because Golden State isn't going to want somebody like Kuminga at 7. So the raw prospect slips.
Right. Right. I agree with you. I agree. I think Kuminga could slip out of the top 7 or 8.
And then Orlando gets the guy. That's the profile they like, the Jonathan Isaac type of guy at number 8. Makes sense. All right. So let's go to Golden State, actually, who 2 lottery picks, win now mode, getting Clay back, get Wiseman in there for another year. They're a really interesting team with that original big 3 that won the titles, and now bringing in all these lottery picks to kind of work in a win now piece. Obviously a trade candidate. If something were to happen, they have a lot of flexibility. What do you like for them at 7, and then just throw 14 in there, like what they might be looking for there?
Yeah, I mean, I could see Davion Mitchell being one of those picks.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure which one, but I feel like he's perfect for what they need. An elite level defender,
right?
Who again shot 45% from 3 and can run a team. Like, he's not going to be their starting point guard now. We know that, but he can be a great second unit point guard and help them immediately. You know, a 4-year college player, right? I mean, he played at Auburn, transferred, sat out a year, and then played at Baylor, and was the key for them winning a national title, really. So I could see him being in the mix. The other guy that's like a wild card in all this is Keon Johnson. You know, off the charts at the combine, athletically, like broke every record, every vertical record. And again, some people feel like at the highest end, he could be a Russell Westbrook type player. You know, again, I didn't see that at Tennessee.
High ceiling.
Yeah, really high ceiling. But again, the athleticism, the body frame, and again, we never thought Westbrook was going to be this. Never coming out of college. You know, he put up very modest numbers like Keon Johnson did.
For sure.
Keon Johnson, not a great shooter. So does somebody like Golden State roll the dice with him and said, like, all right, we're probably not going to get big time free agents anymore. Those days are over. Right. I mean, I just don't see it anymore. I mean, they were the destination because for KD coming to win a title, who's coming to win a title now at Golden State at the end of their reign here?
Yeah. And I mean, they have the 2 picks. So in theory, I don't know how likely they are to, like, if they want to win now, I would say take 2 win now pieces, but they could always take a win now and a gamble in there.
They should trade it. They should trade it. And the other guy I like for them on their second pick is Chris Duarte, who, again, a riser, an absolute riser. And again, it's funny because we've all said this for months. Like, everybody's been, me, Rob Doster, a bunch of other people who have watched college basketball have said, like, Chris Duarte, there's no way he's in the 20s. At the end of the day, he's going to go somewhere late lottery, you know, somewhere in that 12 to 18 range. He's got the size. He can shoot the shit out of it. He can guard. He knows how to play. You can plug him in now. And the only downside is every NBA guy saying, well, he's 23, 24 years old. But, you know, how long are you going to have him anyway?
All right, let's talk about, before we round out the top 10, let's talk about 2 guys specifically that we hit on there. One of them, a guy that you brought up when I sent you all the numbers from DK Sportsbook, Davion Mitchell. Personally, I love him. I find him so easy to root for. He was terrific in the tournament. Some Marcus Smart maybe to him.
Better. He'll be better offensively.
Better offensively, smaller though.
Yep.
So he opened right around, it was like, will he go to Golden State at 7 or not? He opened at 7.5 on DK Sportsbook. Maybe Golden State takes him there at 7, but the over was the play when those odds opened. You got a lot more spots he can go after 7, obviously. He has moved all the way to 12.5 on DK Sportsbook. And you said to me, Davion under 12.5, Davion to go in that top 12, likely somewhere in that 7 to 12 range. And the history of taking these guys that will be 23 years old as a rookie in the lottery is terrible if you go back and look at the names. But you got to do this by looking at Davion Mitchell. Give me your thoughts on him. Give me where you think he lands with. You can't make the argument. You're getting value because he was 7.5. Now he's 12.5. So you're getting value. Where do you think he lands?
Well, my only concern is if he doesn't go 7 or 8, you got 9 Sacramento. They're not taking him.
Right.
10 New Orleans. They're focused on Kyle Lowry. 11 Charlotte. They got 8,000 point guards. They're not taking him. So that's my only concern is if he doesn't go 7 or 8 to Golden State or Orlando, your last shot is 12 at San Antonio.
12 to the Spurs.
Who's got DeJounte Murray? He's good, but I just think Davion's a guy like you talked about. He's got some Marcus Smart on him defensively. Not quite as big, but he kind of is. I mean, he's probably 6'1", 6'2". Smart's a little bit bigger probably, but he's better than Smart in terms of his ability to run a team, right? And again, he shot 45% from 3 last year. So I think Davion goes 7 or 8. I do. I think Orlando. If you're Orlando, what have you been looking for forever?
What if you have book night at 5?
I'd still
More guards?
I don't listen. Okay. The NBA is so built right now. If you can't shoot the ball,
right,
you're not staying on the court. And I love Scotty Barnes to death, and he's the one I take a shot on, even though he's not a good shooter. I'd take a shot on him. Kuminga to me, I wouldn't take him the top 10 personally.
Okay, interesting. All right. The other guy you talked about was one of the guys that I was going to touch on the end, and that's Chris Duarte. Another we're talking about the old guys here.
Yeah.
Opened 20.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah.
Took a lot of money. Reopened 17.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Took a lot of money. Sits at 15.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. As I said, we're recording this on Tuesday, July 27th. I will not be surprised if this moves to 14.5, 13.5 if you're watching this on draft day. Did you miss the value? Yes. Will I play him under 15.5? Yeah. I will too. I think Golden State at 14 is.
What about Indiana at 13? If they don't re-sign McDermott, if Indiana doesn't re-sign McDermott, they're going to want a guy who can come in, play right away, make shots, and what he does that McDermott didn't do was really defend at a high level.
All right. So I think we're on the same page there. And then your last out on 15.5 would be Washington at 15. Do you think that's
I mean, Washington, listen, if you're Tommy Shepard in Washington, you're taking a shot. You're probably actually going to roll the dice on somebody that, a Jaylen Johnson, a guy that has a little bit more upside potentially than Chris Duarte. Like Duarte's great on a team to me that feels like they're a piece away from like Golden State taking Indiana. Like Indiana is not that far away.
And what do you think about San Antonio at 12? That would probably be Duarte's ceiling maybe in this draft.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I see it. I think that's a little bit of a reach for a team like San Antonio. Again, like to me, San Antonio is like Washington. Like they're still a ways away. You need to me, there's some guys in this draft that have high upsides, like a Keon Johnson, like a Kai Jones, like a Jaylen Johnson, guys like Isaiah Jackson. To me, you probably roll the dice if you're a small market team that's not getting, not getting free agents with guys like that. Josh Giddey from Australia, somebody like that. Moses Moody. We haven't talked about Moses Moody. You know,
We
he's
will
a
talk
guy I
about
could
that.
see Golden State being all over.
Yep. Okay. And I've seen him as early as 7 to Golden State for Moody, and the potential to 14, kind of that 7 to 14 window, which is a big window, but that's kind of the type of draft this is once we get out of that top 4, like you said. Okay, we can skip over Orlando at 8 because we talked Orlando.
Yeah.
Let's go Sacramento at 9. Like you said, this pick isn't going to be a guard. The most mock drafts here have Franz Wagner from Michigan. He seems to be the guy. He's a guy that originally, so his number's kind of been at 9.5 all the way. And originally the juice was to the over that he'll go 10 or later. That's reversed. Now he's favored to go in the top 9, but I don't think he goes anywhere. I think we all know, I don't think anybody sees him going in the top 8. It's that 9 spot to Sacramento, or it's not. There's been a lot of rumors he's gotten a promise in the top 10. It seems, by the way his workouts have gone, you can bet him just to be a top 10 pick. He is minus 170 on DK Sportsbook if you want to play it safer than just the under 9.5. Is Sacramento the spot here?
Here's what I'll tell you. I've talked to a lot of NBA guys on Franz Wagner. Some love him and some don't like him at all.
I don't work in the NBA, but I'm in the don't like him.
Yeah. I would probably roll the dice on that one and go with not going in the top 10 and say that, you know, a Sacramento goes with a Kai Jones or a Moses Moody.
Okay.
And New Orleans maybe takes one of them, or, you know, I'm not sold on Wagner. Good defender, kind of a little bit of a tease on the offensive end. You don't know what you're going to get, but again, looks the part. Only shot, I think, 35%, maybe 34% from 3 last year.
Not as good of a shooter as the perception is.
Kai Jones is a really good shooter. I'd rather roll the dice with Kai Jones because he's 6'11", and he can be a face-up 4-man who can also put it on the floor. His ceiling is higher to me than Franz Wagner.
All right. 10. We had a trade.
Yep.
So this was New Orleans. We had the Valanciunas trade, Bledsoe moving, Steven Adams moving. A pretty interesting trade. Memphis, taking on, downgrading at center and taking on Bledsoe's contract to move up 7 picks. They must absolutely love somebody, was my initial reaction, that they can get at 10 that they can't get at 17. And the early reports are that guy is Josh Giddey, the guard from Australia. I've seen some of that. Josh Giddey's minus 185 to be a top 10 pick. Are you falling in line with that? Or I was surprised. No. Like, what is Memphis doing?
Doesn't make sense if they take Josh Giddey. He doesn't fit with Ja Morant. Well, he just doesn't fit with Ja. Like, you're building everything around Ja Morant, who and really Dylan Brooks to some extent. Like, Dylan Brooks has been terrific. So those are your guys. To me, I would want a gunner. I would want an absolute floor spacer. And to me, if Moses Moody is there, I'm taking. If he's not, it's a reach, but do you take a Corey Kispert? I mean, he's the best pure shooter in the draft. He just can't guard anybody. But people think he can go Harris.
I'm down on Kispert.
Yeah. Listen, for me, Kispert
is just recency bias on the tournament.
Yeah.
But he was so bad.
He can't get by dudes. But if you know you don't need him for that, if you just need him to stand out there and make open threes, then you're fine. But that's not what Memphis needs. Memphis needs somebody that's better than that. I would love, personally, I don't think they'll do it, but man, the backcourt of Ja Morant and Keon Johnson would be the craziest, most electric, most athletic backcourt of all time. Like, I just want to see it. I know it doesn't work. I don't care. Like, put those two together, and it's like the damn Globetrotters out there. They'd be so much fun. Just be like on a trampoline the whole time.
All right. So that kind of rounds us through the top 10. Do you have anything? I do think Charlotte at 11 is kind of an interesting spot. Do you have any feel there?
Well, they got to go big. I mean, they got to go skill big to me, because you've got all those guards. Right. We know.
So I'm seeing like a Kai Jones, Texas type.
Yes. Stuff. Kai Jones is absolutely ideal there. To me, again, Yeah, like Kai Jones or Franz Wagner. Those are the two that if they're there, I think you got to take them if you're Charlotte.
All right, fair enough. Okay, let's talk about two more guys that jumped out to you on the board. And we will start with Sharif Cooper, point guard from Auburn, talented little guard. Auburn, I tell you this, just from betting college basketball last year, Auburn was an awful bet out of the gates. And then he came into the lineup and boom, immediately they start covering spreads, winning games. He made an impact.
And overs, overs,
yes.
Julian. That's what you had to bet with Sharif Cooper. If you bet the over every because he didn't guard at all, at all. And that's why, go ahead, give me the number.
Right. So, okay, here's what we're getting into. Talented offensive player, good feel for the game. Small, doesn't defend, 20.5.
Right.
You got him going outside of this top 20. And I agree with you. I like this bet a lot. Sharif Cooper, over 20.5. Tell me why he's not going in the top 20.
Well, he can't shoot, and he doesn't guard anybody, and he's tiny.
Which is terrible when you're a small guard. That just off the top of my head brings me like Sebastian Telfair type of
guard
that can't shoot.
Right, and can't guard.
And
you better be an elite level defender that's going to get up in dudes. Listen, to me, I think Sharif Cooper is probably a late first, early second, and a great second unit point guard. And I don't think you're drafting a second unit point guard in the top 20.
Okay. I like that a lot. That's something I'm going to be on. Sharif Cooper over 20.5 in my NBA draft best bets article that you can find on the DraftKings playbook. Last one here. And we got one of the coolest names in the draft, Bones Highland, guard from VCU. His number, I don't even have it in front of me, but it stuck out.
His number is, I got it. It's 27.5, and he's moving up.
Okay. So he's a guy that's really risen from, a second round pick to really on everybody's board. I can vouch for him. I'm a roadie Ram. I'm an A10 guy. So I watch a lot of A10 hoops, get some VCU games. This kid's legit. And the NBA seems to agree. Tell me why you like him to go in those top 27 and give me maybe some potential landing spots.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a big time scorer. So I think somebody's going to take him because what he can do is what the NBA wants right now, which is give him the ball and go make a play. He did it at VCU this year. And again, I think he's a guy that to me, I think will move up. I think he's already starting to move up at this point. I'll give you a couple more that I like from just, lower tier guys. I like Brandon Boston. It's 38.5. And my take on why I like Brandon Boston is twofold, a little bit different than most people's. One, his body, like he's got like a Brandon Ingram body, really struggled last year at Kentucky, but didn't have a point guard.
He was a high level prospect going into Kentucky. Yep. So he's a guy to roll the dice on.
Super long, super thin, didn't shoot the ball well, but I think people are going to take him on potential. And the other part is he's a Rich Paul client. And by being a Rich Paul client, generally a team might take him early in the second round, almost to say, hey, you know what? We're going to take your guy at 32, 33, instead of maybe in the 40s, and it's going to help us with some other Rich Paul clients.
All right. The game within the game.
Game within the game, and you got to play it. You got to play it. I like Daron Sharp, 30.5. I think he goes in the first round. So a big who's athletic and more skilled than people realize, and big and strong and looks the part. That's one I also like there. And I think those were the ones that we talked about more than anything. Yeah. Isaiah Livers, 52.5. I think I would probably go the under on that.
Okay. Yeah. That seemed off to me. Like, I understand he's not the best NBA prospect, but like he can help. He seems like a mid-second round pick.
Matthew Hurt, I go under 53.5. He's a skilled four-man, who can shoot the shit out of it. Went to Duke. Like, I could see him. I'd be surprised if he doesn't go in the 40s.
Okay. Those are guys that I was going to ask you about because that's steam to the over. Like Hurt.
Yep.
You can get plus 115 on the under 53.5.
Yeah.
Other like right next to him on the board is a guy like McKinley Wright. Like, is he going to get drafted? He's 58.5 with high steam to the over. So like,
yeah, he's small. And we say this, it's hard because we don't know how many international guys are going to go this year. It's always in the second round. That's always the worry about taking guys, when we talk about livers and Hurt, generally you're going to get 10 international guys somewhere around there that go in the second round. So there's only 20 spots for Americans or thereabouts in the second round.
All right. One more interesting late one that this is totally off the board, but Jay Huff is on the board here, which I find strange.
58.5.
Over 58.5. But here's the thing. The juice says he's just not getting drafted because it's minus 280 for over 58.5. So if you think he gets drafted and it's not 59 or 60, you can get plus 210 on him being in the top 58 in that draft. Big guy, size can always get drafted, but the numbers say or the juice says that he's not going, or if he does, he's going to be the last pick in the draft. Any take on whether he goes or not?
I wouldn't think he goes. But again, those late seconds, you never know because so many of them, I don't remember his agent off the top of my head. So many of those are favors. So like you could say it all you want, but if he's with the right agent at the right time, and that team has another client of that agent that they want to re-sign next year, it just might be one of those, hey, you know what? We'll take Jay Huff. We'll bring him into camp. We'll even give him a guaranteed $500,000 because you know what? Doesn't matter who cares. Right. We'll throw $500,000 out the window and give it to Jay Huff and make him happy and make you happy because we know we got your guy, your main guy coming up at the end of the year or right now.
Yeah. Okay. Last quick one is a guy that is off the board, but a guy that when the board opened and we were kind of setting up this podcast, I sent you some names and Jared Butler opened at 18.5 and he had the heart issues going on and you said over, he could slip to the second round. That came off the board at DraftKings, obviously with, the health issues, you can't take that liability. Opened back up at 20.5, went off the board again. He's still off the board. There are some places in the industry that have him at 21.5. I've seen him in a mock go 22 to the Lakers. I would imagine DraftKings is going to bring him up with a prop at some point before the draft in that early 20s range. He's now been cleared. What does that do for him? Is he a pick in the 20s now? Does he still slip second round because those concerns are still there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's cleared and that's awesome because you're not going to find a better kid than Jared Butler. You are. I'm telling you, he is. I root for him. He's the best. He's the best. And he can score it. He can play both backcourt spots. He can run a team in the NBA, a big time scorer, shooter, can get to the basket. I think he goes, I would probably go the over. If he comes on the board at 21.5, I'd probably go the over because I still think there's going to be concerns with NBA teams. Even with the fact that he's cleared, I think there's going to be some concerns.
It still happened. So it's a great story and it's great that he's cleared, but we still know that that's there. And it'll affect him in some way. All right. We covered a lot of field. We covered a lot of ground there in this field. The floor is yours. Have you got any other hot takes before we get out of here?
I'm looking right now. I'm trying to think. I think we covered him. David Johnson. I kind of like the under at 47.5. Big, big, talented point guard who's erratic, but I think somebody might look at him and say, you know what? We can get it out of him. How about Greg Brown? 45.5. That number is low compared to what we thought. Like he was a top 5 player coming in. Shaka didn't really get much out of him as a freshman at Texas, but he is 6'8", 6'9", freakishly athletic. And I don't know. I mean, like to me, those two Texas guys, Jericho Sims at 48.5 and Greg Brown at 45.5. Those are two of the freakier athletes in the draft right now. And I got to say, I'd probably go under on both if I was going to go one or the other. But I don't, I don't have a strong take on those guys.
All right. And it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from going through what we went through, it sounds like kind of your favorite bet available on DK Sportsbook is Jalen Suggs to be the fourth pick at minus 160.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if he's not, unless something crazy happens and a trade is made for somebody who wants to take Suggs earlier.
Toronto, right? Okay, let's say Toronto keep, as long as there are no trades in the top four. We'll preface it with that. Suggs to go 4.
That's right.
All right, there we go. Jeff Goodman, basketball analyst at Stadium. You can follow him on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. I'm sure you got plenty of NBA draft content coming up in the next couple of days. If you want to tell people where to find it or what you got coming up.
Yeah, I'll have a new mock tomorrow, updated mock, and then we have a live show during the draft. So if you want to watch us, it'll be me, Shams Charania, Pat Garrity. We'll have Jarrett Jack also on, and he played with Jaylen Green and Jonathan Kuminga on the G League Ignite team. So you're not going to find somebody with better insight into those two players than Jarrett Jack, who also has played a long time in the NBA. And so it should be a good one because I think we'll give it to people straight. I think, listen, I was on ESPN's telecast. I get it. They do a good job, but I'll give it to you straight because I don't know any other way.
There you go. Bettors like it straight. Yep. That's what they want so that they can figure out what's going to happen in this draft, find a way to grind out some profit. All right, that'll do it for us. Jeff Goodman here on the Unreasonable Odds podcast. For Julian Edlow, we will see you later with a couple of good podcasts. We're going to have the week 1 NFL salaries release for the DraftKings main slate. Football's right around the corner, and we're going to have Phil Steele on to cover some college football win totals, some college football futures. So for Jeff Goodman, for Julian Edlow, that will do it for this edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast presented by DraftKings. See you all soon.